Welcome to the Black Sheep Props channel. I'm Steve, and I'm here to teach you the tips, tools, techniques, and materials for building your very own super cool EVA foam props. In our last episode, making an EVA foam ray gun part 3, we wrapped it up by sealing it and painting it, and it turned out crazy awesome. Because of that, you can't take a crazy awesome prop and let it lay on its side in shame like a down bagpiper. For a crazy awesome prop, you need a crazy awesome display stand for that prop. So, without further ado, Black Sheep Props would like to introduce you to the newest member of the family, the ray gun stand. Check that out. Not only is it a ray gun stand, but it's a themed ray gun stand. And what I mean is, all the details that we used for the stand match the same details we used for our ray gun. We have our buttons on the stand, the same way that we have the buttons on our handle. We have the wood-burned lines in the base plate, the same way that we have the wood-burned lines on the handle and around the body. We have our EVA foam dowels on the front and sides of the cradle, just like we use the EVA foam dowels for the coils. So, in this episode, making an EVA foam ray gun stand, we're going to go step by step through how you can make your own super cool EVA foam ray gun stand. So, if you're ready to hit it, let's make something. Okay, very simple. We drew out our pattern for our base on our 1/2" floor mat foam, the kind you can get from the hardware store that has the rough side. This is going to be the bottom, so don't worry about that. We transferred our template. We're going to use our box cutter, and the reason we're cutting from the bottom is because we're going to tilt our knife and cut around all 4 sides on an angle so we get a nice bevel cut. And then when we flip it over, the top of the stand will have the nice bevel cut around the edges. There we go, nice and sharp. Now we're going to simply come in, we're going to get to our line. Now we're not going to use the knife on a 90-degree angle because our cut would be straight. We're going to tilt it, and we're going to cut through at a 45. Now watch this. We cut right through at a 45, and it slides off, and look at that beautiful bevel cut on the edge. Look at that, very nice. We're bevel cutting right through it like so, and that slides off. Look at that. Now when you flip it over, kapow, look at that bevel cut. Beautiful. Look at that bevel cut, super nice. Now you see why we did the bevel cutting from the back, because we want our bevel to lean in. If we cut from the front and we bevel cut, we would have had the bevel go in the wrong direction. So look at that, very simple, very beautiful. And we didn't need the bandsaw for this because it's very simple to keep your knife tilted at the same angle for all 4 sides. Okay, now we're going to do the next level up on our base. And we've talked about this before, that you're gonna have to make a decision on thicknesses of foam as you build. So we used a 1/2" thick piece for the base. And now for the piece that's gonna lay on the top, we wanna go thinner. So here we're using probably 8mm, and you make that call. It's whatever you want. We know we want it thinner than this, so we picked an 8. We marked our corners out the same way we did on the base. We did the bevel cut. We're gonna do a bevel cut also around this, so they each have a bevel. It's a nice detail, but before we do the cut, we wanna measure out and draw all of our lines, because we're going to be coming in with our wood burner, and we're going to be burning a series of grooves for a nice detail through our base plate. And we don't want to do that after we make the cut, because when you run the wood burner across the end of a piece of foam, you can get an odd result. So we're going to do all of our straight burns with the wood burner first, and then after that we're going to come in and do the bevel cutting. And just like that. Nice consistent width on all the lines, because we started at 1 speed and we continued at the same speed. Look at that, very nice, very nice. Now what we're going to do is we're going to come in with our box cutter and we're gonna cut these lines at a bevel so that we have a nice bevel on our top step. But don't forget, we want to cut from the bottom of the piece because we want our bevel to be correct. So what we're going to do is we're going to use our X-Acto knife, and we're going to poke a little tiny mark where our lines are so that we see it on the other side of the foam. When we turn it over, you can't tell on the camera, but we can see where the little holes are. Now we know where to mark our lines. Okay, we have our marks, like so. We have our lines drawn on the back where we're going to use our box cutter to do our bevel cut. And then on the opposite side are our lines ready to go, so we're going to cut that next. Okay, now we're going to flip it over, tilt our knife. We roll right through. We slide right through. And now look at this. Look at the bevel cut around the edge. Look at that. We want to take our heat gun. Foam is tightening up. Now we're going to put our base down. We're going to trace around it with our Sharpie so we mark off where we want to do our contact cementing. We're going to fill in our area where we mark with our Sharpie. Get right up to the line. We'll wait a couple minutes and then pow, contact. We're going to line up our two pieces. We've got our line marked. There we go. We're going to lay this down, and there we go. We're lined up exactly where we want to be. Put down even pressure all the way down. Wow, look at how cool that is. Now what we're going to do is we're going to come in with our handy dandy brass tube. We're going to punch out 4 rivets for the 4 corners. Okay, now we're going to come in with our X-Acto blade like we've done. And we're shaving it. We're sharpening the edge ultra sharp right now. Start rotating and watch this. Look at that. That easy. Like, sharpen our brass tube, 2 or 3 spins for each little piece. We've got 4 perfect rivets. Very simple. We're going to get a small dollop of super glue down on our Bristol. So come in with 1 rivet. Beautiful. We're going to put it on. Hold it with our finger. Get it to set. Wow, look at that. Very cool. Okay, we have the pattern drawn out on our foam for the front stand for our ray gun stand. This is going to be the cradle, the round cradle that the front end of the ray gun sits in. And we just measured around our coils on our ray gun to make sure we had the right size so it would fit in there. And we actually ended up finding something that was perfect, which was our roll of blue painter's tape, and we laid it down and we simply traced the outside and the inside to get our cradle shape. And then we just measured the height we wanted, and we matched the same width here, the 1/2 inch width of the front end of the cradle. And then, okay, we cut our end off. Nice flush cut. We already cut the back side off. Now we're going to cut the center circle out using our X-Acto knife. And we keep our knife straight up. There we go. All right. Keep your knife straight up. We want to use as little of the point as possible. Stick right in there. We're going to spin around the outside. Very simple. This is going to stand up and be the front part that the ray gun sits in. Okay, now what we did is we cut 2 more pieces the same height as this, and we're going to attach them to the sides of this piece to give us a much thicker base. And then we're going to trim the whole thing out. So we're going to get our heat gun going. We're going to heat all of our open areas. There we go. Everything's heat sealed. Now we're going to contact cement them and stick them together. We've got both sides of our stand, and we've got the two inside pieces. So when these dry, we'll stick those together. Okay, our contact cement is dry. We're going to take this piece, we're going to line it up flush on that top edge. We're just laying it down very carefully, just like so. We're going to stick it right along the edge just like that. Line it up and boom, just like that. Okay, now we have a thicker base. That's why we did that. Okay, now we have our lines drawn. Slide right through. Off comes one side. We're going to spin this around. Slide right through that side. We have our perfect stand now. Okay, so now what we were going to do is we're going to take our EVA foam dowel, and then after we cut our piece of foam to be the correct length, we're going to then use our box cutter and we're going to split our dowel in half because we want a half round on each of the four sides. There's our mark right there. Now we know exactly where we want to cut the EVA foam dowel so that they're the correct height. Very simple. We're going to come in with our box cutter. We're going to keep the knife at a 90-degree angle because we want it straight. We're going to slice through and back. That's it. And we're going to come now to this side. We're going to go through one time and back, just like cutting a Tootsie Roll. All right, now next thing we're going to do is we're going to use our box cutter and we're going to split these two in half. So we end up with 4 half rounds. Okay, now we're going to come in, we're going to use our knife and we're going to line it up right in the center, like so. We're going to start with a little bit of a cut, get all the way through. Now take your time, go very slow, hold on the outside of the dowel, slide right through, so we're taking our time, and right through the middle. Look at that! 2 half rounds. Very cool. Now we're going to cut the other foam dowel. Bring our heat gun in. We're going to heat seal our pieces before we glue them. There we go, look at that. Tightened up nicely. Wait 5 minutes and then we'll attach our half rounds. All right, we're coming in, we're going to lay them down flush. We're going to center them in our stand like so. We're going to come to the other side. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to stick it down in the center of the pole just like that. We're going to line it up. All right, now there's 2 halves of our cradle. We'll put our piece in the center, we'll hold it up, we'll line it straight on. Just very nice little detail on the stand. Okay, so now we're going to Dremel around the edge of our stand. We're going to Dremel some of the cradle just to round the edges off so there's a smoother detail. And as we talk about all the time, don't Dremel without your dust mask, kids. All right, there we go. Very nice. We rounded off our corners on our stand. We rounded off the edges. We rounded off some of the inside of the cradle just so it's not a super hard line. And that is looking mighty nice. Very nice. Just the subtle rounding off of the edges just helps it a little bit not look so hard. And we're going to hit this quickly with the heat gun. Very tight, very tight. Trace around it. Get our contact cement down. 5 minutes and then contact. Okay, now we've waited 5 minutes. Everything's dry. Very simple. We're just gonna slide right in. We're gonna line up where we put our Sharpie line. We're going to keep the back side lifted up just to make sure we lay it down straight, and boom. Okay, there's our ray gun stand. We come in, we set the front coil right in the cradle just like that, and dig that. That is cool. Okay, we've got our stand all ready to go, completely built. Now we're going to come in with our Plastidip and we're going to seal it, get it ready for paint, and then we're going to paint it to match our ray gun. Very nice, all Plastidipped, ready to paint. Okay, now we're going to begin to paint our stand. We've got our foam brushes, we've got our regular brush, we've got our model tape, a piece of cardboard, and we have our red paint to start painting the stand with. Okay, we taped around the base. Peel our tape off. We're already looking a little bit aged because we didn't fill the paint in everywhere. We left it a little bit thin in some spots. We've masked it off so we can now come in with the silver. Now we're going to peel our tape off. Nice. All right, next thing, we'll get out our brown like we've seen before, and we're going to just age it up a little bit. Make it. Okay, we get the whole sponge covered, but then we get it pretty dry, because that's the look we want. That is crazy awesome. Okay, that concludes making an EVA foam ray gun stand. And you saw how easy it was. The same way that building our ray gun was easy, building the ray gun stand was just as easy. You can do this. Turned out great. So, that concludes making an EVA foam ray gun stand. Hope you liked it. If you did, give us a like, share us with a friend, and subscribe to this channel, and together we're going to go step by step through a lot more super cool builds so that you get the props you deserve. Thanks again. See you next time.